definitely focused on being a servant leader and serving the people that I'm leading, trying to help them reach their maximum potential, trying to unblock them from doing stuff. I also like what Vinod at Khosla Ventures says on the topic of building a team. I'm very focused on building the best team that I can, hiring great people, and letting them do their thing and move forward. So really, I'd say a solo focused on hiring exceptional people.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Today, we're going to talk about building an amazing team. When you think about your team, are you absolutely thrilled? And are they fully optimized? Well, I know that most companies can't say that. In fact, very few can. When you think about your company and building an amazing team, you have no one to blame but yourself. So today we're going to talk about it. We have with us George Simons. He's with Solo. Solo is a debt platform that allows you to work with consumers and work with people who have debt and help them figure out better ways to serve. Now, George is going to explain it a lot better than I did right there, but I wanted to make sure that we framed in his company because they made the Inc. list. They're very impressive. And today we talk about building an amazing team. The core of this is more than what you think. It's not just getting the work done and creating incredible sales and profitability. It's more about the foundation stuff, the mission, the values of the organization, and leadership, and creating the kind of culture where people are attracted to and they come on board aligned with those values. All that being said, building an amazing team is something to strive for. When you think about your own growth as a leader, make sure that you continue to tune in here to Grow Think Tank. My name is Gene Hammett. I am a CEO coach. We do founder coaching, executive coaching, and we also do leadership development, helping managers become leaders. We share all of the insights we have as much as we can for free through the podcast, through our content that we create through YouTube and other social channels. And we want to invite you to the next training. If you're feeling like you're the bottleneck of the company, if you've got more than 20 employees, I invite you to go to training.coreelevation.com, where you can get the key insights of how we take Inc. level companies, Inc. 5,000 companies, beyond 5 million to 10 million, and beyond that to 20 million, and keep going by rebuilding a stronger foundation and shifting their leadership model. You don't have to work harder to get there. You do have to work smarter, and you have to become a better leader, lead differently, in other words. And so if you want that free training, just go to training.coreelevation.com. When you sign up, you will get confirmations, and you will show up to get the insights that we share with Inc. 5,000 level companies and all of the data around that. It will help you and be the most valuable 90 minutes you've ever had, and it's absolutely free. Just go to training.coreelevation.com. Now, here's the interview with George. Hey, George, how are you?
Doing good.
We're going to have an incredible conversation here. I am ready to chat with you about Solo. So let's dive in. Tell us about what Solo, what makes you guys different?
Fantastic, Gene. Yeah, happy to. So Solo helps people resolve debt. We're a company that has helped over 300,000 people with $2 billion in debt. We're backed by Y Combinator and Kleiner Perkins, and we're a technology company recently named on the Inc. 5,000 list.
Well, you have commonality because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other founders have been here because they've been ranked on the Inc. 5,000. I do have a question about debt. You guys get a chance to look at the macro data across American employees or American people. What's your look at the data, the insights behind that? Are things getting worse? Things getting a little bit better as far as debt concerns?
You'd have to figure out how to define better exactly in that regard. Debt is increasing. Number of lawsuits and people being sued for debt is increasing. So probably in that regard, it's becoming worse. At the same time, as we know, credit's becoming more available to everybody. So that could be considered an aspect where it's better. But certainly The aggregate household income that we look at quite a bit, which is measured by the Fed on a quarterly basis, has been going up every quarter for a long time, basically since 2008. It's now at levels much higher than they were in 2008. And lawsuits, we've found, we look at the lawsuit space a lot. Once debt becomes delinquent enough, the consumer gets sued for the debt. And lawsuits actually dropped in 2020 and during the COVID years, mainly because collectors were able to collect more from consumers because consumers enjoyed higher liquidity during those period. Basically, the government was giving people checks, just script cash, and then collectors were able to collect that money, right, that was given to the consumer. So they didn't have to sue consumers for it. Now lawsuits are indeed going up significantly, and Solo's here to help people out.
Well, Solo, I really appreciate that. I don't know how the average family is making it with the inflation and the cost of food and the cost of everything going up, but I know that debt is the killer, and you guys helping people understand debt and getting out of debt is very admirable. To get there to create this business, it wasn't you alone. You have a steady stream of employees, about 25, 26 employees or so. What would you say are the core principles of leadership that make your company successful?
Yeah, a few things, right? We have a solid mission statement, and we also operate from guiding principles. So for our mission, we're focused on superpowering consumers to resolve their debt. And an important tenet of that is actually working closely with collectors to make it easy for the consumer to pay the collector and get things fully resolved. So we focus on maintaining good relationships with collectors as well. Then we have a few principles that we really live by. One of them is do for the customer what you'd want done for you. Really a basic timeless principle. We really live by that. And then some others are excellence is the only authority. We believe in pure idea meritocracy, where the best idea, best concept, best solution should win. Another one is discover reality. So we're focused on diving into the data, figuring out what's actually going on, and we really reward people for taking ownership of whatever problem they're trying to solve and getting the data needed to figure it out, asking the right questions, figuring things out there. Then the fourth principle for us is Kaizen, continuously improve. We have pretty serious operations arm in the company, and we're focused on always improving, getting feedback, becoming better every day.
I love the fact that you can rattle them off. A lot of leaders don't know them that well.
Yep.
Uh, I did not test you and tell you that's what I was going to ask you. So it's even better behind this. I want to go back to mission though. I think a lot of people don't really either have a mission or don't really leverage it to be a core growth piece of their company. How did you get introduced to the idea of having a mission and using it as you were growing this company?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in books. I go to books and oftentimes treat them like manuals for running my company. I think the most core book is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, who's BYU, closely tied to BYU, where I graduated. And yeah, I turned to that book a lot, right? It focuses on having a mission statement, writing down the mission statement, making that core to an organization. And that is where I was introduced to the concept. And definitely we live by that solo.
Now, George talked about the questions they ask in an interview process, and it's a lightweight version of that. I think that can work for some organizations. As they get a little bit more mature, they have a refined process that doesn't have to be, too complex, but it has to be very intentional. They're using questions and that align with the values, and they're also using assessments. These are really good tools if you want to figure out how they work. If you want some of the best tools out there, send me an email. I will share with you those assessment tools that our clients are using and they get the most mileage out of, and we'll share that breakdown with you. Just send it to gene@genehammett.com. And if we can help you any other way, make sure you let me know you heard it from the podcast. Now back to George.
I would imagine it plays into your hiring process, getting people to understand the mission. I don't know how deep you would be able to describe this, but what's the best way you use to assess whether someone aligns with your mission?
Yeah, we're able to have a pretty lean hiring process. It's usually just the first call with me, and then we focus on assessments, which I think has become a bit of a trend, at least in technology startups that I'm familiar with, where we create some kind of an assessment for every person we're hiring. And then the other main components, like a full interview with me and some other people on the team, where we're doing behavioral interview questions, where we develop questions based on each guiding principle, and then we score the person's response based on like the ideal response, factoring in like the guiding principle. And that's primarily how we hire, and it's been helpful for us for sure.
George, I appreciate you sharing with us about, your culture and your leadership. You also, if you go back in time, I guess you started with a co-founder. Tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about why you chose to go that path with a co-founder.
Yeah, some startups, maybe many startups, we have a bit of a nuanced history. So Solo began as Solo Suit. It was really a concept brought up by a few students and a professor at BYU Law School. So out of the Law X class at BYU Law School, we reviewed court data in Utah, found that debt collection cases are the most common type of lawsuit in the US, and consumers pretty much never have attorneys to help them out in those situations. So we made Solo Suit, which would generate a free answer for a consumer just in Utah. And so in a sense, like, those students and were kind of co-founders for like the first draft of Solo Suit. And then from there, I took the reins on for Solo Suit. We eventually became Solo. We launched nationally in 2020. I brought on a co-founder, Scott, and then we worked together for a solid 4 years. And that was crucial. I mean, Scott was essential for helping us fundraise in the early days. I think some of his connections were great, and also he was a technical co-founder, so he was the primary person writing code and making the product great.
So bringing on a co-founder to complement the skills is what I keep hearing a lot. I heard that from you and I heard it from many others, is a really good strategy because I don't know if he's probably more technical than you are.
That's right.
So you're able to lean on him. And sometimes there's some difficulties, and I don't know if there was any specific difficulties that you guys were going through, or just decided to go in different directions. How would you frame that in as far as your co-founder relationship?
Yeah, so Scott and I parted ways about a year ago, and it was best for both of us. Very grateful for the time that we worked together, for sure. As far as the difficulties go between founders, I think they can come down I mean, in many different ways. I think that one way I've seen it described is, and most founder dynamics, I think, apply to relationships more generally, especially if there's just two founders. It's just the situation where one founder will prioritize one thing on a spectrum, right? Let's say one founder prioritizes like business development or like sales. And then on the other side of that spectrum is like building the product that's making the product better. I think it's a common phenomenon where one founder will be a little bit more on like the sales side. One founder will be a little bit more on the product side. And then the sales guy might try to convince the product guy to come more to the sales side, but the product guy doesn't want to. So then the salesperson runs even further towards sales. He gets like more extreme about how we have to focus on sales. And the other founder might focus and become more extreme on how we need to focus on product. And that's a phenomenon. I think that certainly happened between us to some degree, not necessarily on that spectrum, but that's just something that I've seen in other organizations as well.
I'm kind of curious. I wrote a book on how to have tough conversations, and most people avoid conflict. I also know that when they do, things get worse typically. Were you the type of person that was able to have good conversation and healthy discussions about these priorities, or did you avoid things and they got really bad?
Hard to say. I think probably somebody else looking in would be better able to answer that question.
That's fair.
I think maybe everybody thinks this, but I feel like I'm somewhat neutral. I'm not necessarily conflict avoidant. I'm also not necessarily jumping into tough conversations all the time with people. But I mean, I think in our founding relationship, things could have been better for sure. I went to founders coaches, for example, right? I'm definitely a fan of coaching. I think it's quite helpful, and that was good. So I mean, if if I was too avoidant beforehand, I certainly wasn't too avoidant after I hired a coach, and we had very direct conversations, and I think we basically talked about conflict as much as we possibly could have towards as the relationship went on.
So George, I want to get back to you specifically, and I appreciate you opening up a little bit, being vulnerable about the co-founder relationship. It takes many different flavors, and everyone has a different path. But when it comes down to your style of leadership, you're working with people, trying to inspire them to do more, take ownership, as you mentioned before. How would you frame in your approach to leadership as your company scales to the next level?
My approach to leadership is, I believe in being a servant leader. Right? I like what Sam Walton said on that topic. Definitely focused on being a servant leader and serving the people that I'm leading, trying to help them reach their maximum potential, trying to unblock them from doing stuff. I also like what Vinod at Khosla Ventures says on the topic of building a team. I'm very focused on building the best team that I can, hiring great people, and letting them do their thing and move forward. So really, I'd say at Solo, focused on hiring exceptional people
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of drive. We primarily hire people who are previous founders who have founded something in the past. Maybe like 80 to 90% of people on our team are previous founders, and then giving them direction primarily through the OKR system. So we follow objectives and key results by the book, mostly go into high output management and measure what matters, and just applying that framework to have everyone move in the right direction.
George talked about his style of leadership is servant leadership. I want to tell you a story. I became a leader in my first real entrepreneurial venture in 2001. And I was a good manager, was a very good doer, but leading was not my strong suit. And I did not have the word servant leadership. I'm not sure where that came about, what year, but I didn't have a frame for it. And I will tell you that as I had scaled that company up, I had gotten a coach. Her name was Linda. And Linda held me accountable to my own leadership style. And I remember one day I wanted to remove the barrier. So, a big part of servant leadership is to work for the people that report to you. And that concept can work, but you can also take it too far. In the conversation with Linda, I told her I felt more like a firefighter sometimes than a CEO. And I had about 15 employees. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Tell me some examples of the things you did today. And I rattled off a few things. And she goes, why do you do it for, do that? And I said, well, I'm removing the barriers for their work. And she hit me. And I remember this question from about 20 years ago. If you solve the problem for them, when do they learn to solve it for themselves? So don't take it too far in your interpretation of servant leadership. Make sure you continue to empower people, you hold them accountable, you get them to take ownership, because that will create the kind of amazing team that we've been talking about. Back to George.
I want to start to land the plan in this conversation with you, George. But I'm kind of curious. You've been running this business for a while. You've gotten your feelings, getting your principles of leadership. What is something you used to believe about leadership that turned out to either not be true, or you've changed your mind about it since you've been leading this company?
Probably delegation. Probably delegation. I feel like when I was a kid, mostly what I knew about leadership was delegation. And I think that is a concept that's good if you're a leader in a very large organization. I think as a founder and over time, over like the last decade or so, even going back further than that, I really became a lot more friendly with doing stuff myself, figuring out everything that needs to be done myself, doing that, and then hiring people for doing things after I kind of know how it's done, so that I can know that I'm hiring the right person. And I think now that recently has been kind of memorialized as the founder mode concept,
Yeah.
where right you're leading, but also you're able to go in and correct someone's code review, right? Edit a line of code on a new feature, or change the color on a marketing creative piece, something like that. So I think it's very important to be able to do almost everything yourself to some degree. At the same time, it's very important to hire people to do it as well.
Yeah, I had a client of mine who said something, and I didn't want this to be true, but I find it mostly is. He's like, I'd love to hire people who can fix the problem. And my experience with this is we just haven't been able to do it. And this is across many different domains, from marketing to product to technical, whatever it may be. And he's like, now I feel like I need to have space enough where I can think about the problem enough. I could probably even fix it and then hire someone to create operations and like make it better. But would you agree to that, or would you see it differently across your company?
Are you saying that you can't hire, unfortunately, you can't hire someone to fix the problem? Is that what
He
you're saying?
hasn't
You have to
found that
fix
to
it
be very
yourself?
effective. He
Right.
has to fix it himself and then hire people to manage it after the fact.
I think it's a tough thing. I think I sometimes I think maybe I've leaned a little bit too far towards wanting to do everything myself.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit tricky. I think there's no question that being the difference between $100 million company and $1 billion company is the quality of the team. I think that is the case for most companies, unless they have an exceptional product, like a uniquely valuable product. I think you need to be able to hire the right people that are going to create value without you telling them what to do, that are going to solve problems without you telling them what to do. At the same time, nobody cares more about your business than you, and usually nobody's more equipped to solve a problem than the founder. So it's a bit of a balance. It's a bit of a balance that you want to find on that spectrum.
Yeah, I can see it going both ways. Let's take the
Yeah.
technical aspect. If because I'm not that technical, I can understand it. I wouldn't be able to edit code and look at, troubleshoot, but
Right.
I could have the right conversation around the different functions. But I'd have to rely on, the coders. I'd have to rely on the technical aspects. And, take something like security that's very complex. I wouldn't be able to solve that problem initially, so I'd have to hire that.
Right.
George, you've been here to share with us about your leadership principles that has grown Solo to that next level. Is there anything that we've left out that you feel like is really important to share with the audience, your principles or your thoughts on leadership?
Yeah, I would reemphasize the importance of building an amazing team.
Yeah.
I think before going on solo and maybe at the beginning of the journey to some degree, yeah, I thought I'd be more focused on hiring people to do kind of small, pretty limited scope tasks. But now at this point, really what I've been focused on for the last year is hiring amazing people, primarily people who have been founders, who have a high likelihood of making a multi-million-dollar business themselves, either because they've already done it or they will do it unless I hire them. And that's really what I'm focused on now. So certainly we have people who are solving hard problems on the team without me getting too much into the details. And I think that is essential.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I would reflect on the entirety of our episode here. It's all about building an amazing team. So I think you covered that, talking about the mission, the principles that you have, and some of the things that you have put in place. George, I wanted to say thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Gene.
Wow, what a great episode. Building an amazing team. Building a team takes intention. It takes the right structure and foundation. You won't do it haphazardly. You won't do it just off the cuff. It has to be done with intention. And so today is a primer in that. If you want to go deeper, make sure you go to the free training that I mentioned earlier today. But just if you want to create a better company, go to training.corelevation.com. Stop being the bottleneck of your own company and empower the people around you. It will change the way you show up with work, and it will change the way they show up and perform and really take ownership. So just go to training.corelevation.com. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.